Wizards in D&D. The most powerful class of them all, arguably. Definitely the ones with the best and biggest spell list, not counting you bards with your cheating magical secrets. So, what kind of crazy shenanigans can we get up to if we build one focused on a mix of damage and control all the way to 9th level spells, so we can explore all the power and insanity that massive spell list is capable of when we try and take full advantage of it? Stay tuned to find out. Welcome to D4. Hey everybody, so here at D4 every week I take a deep dive into character builds for my favorite role-playing games. I like to crunch numbers about them, I like to theorycraft about them, not so that I can tell you the right or the best way to play a character, but to explore one potential way to build something in the hopes of creating a character that's both really fun but also powerful to play. So if you also enjoy creating characters for your favorite role-playing games, or if you're just looking for tips or ideas on how to build something you're thinking about playing, or if you just like theory crafting, then welcome home. This is where you belong, and I'm super glad you're here, so thanks for watching. My name's Colby. Okay, here we go. Continuing today with the single class build series. Yes, today is the most versatile, arguably most powerful caster of them all, the one, the only wizard. And you know what? Aside from the very first Bladesinger build that I ever did, right up there, and I suppose the very first two build video that I ever did, Brainy and the Beast, right, where you and a friend were playing a full druid and a full wizard. Other than those, I've never taken a wizard to 17 before in a build video. Over 5 years, 240 builds now. Is that not crazy? That's crazy, right? The character with the biggest spell list in the entire game, almost never getting to 9th level spells. Seems outrageous, borderline sacrilegious even, but I think I've said something to this effect before on the channel. The problem with wizards isn't that they're not good or powerful or fun, they're amazing, right? It's that up until today, at least, I've kind of felt that like wizards were sort of boring to build, you know? Or like I had this idea that there wasn't a ton to them. It's basically just spells, and that's a lot, but it hasn't always felt like they've presented much of a puzzle to be solved, you know what I mean? Maybe outside of Bladesingers, for me. The vast majority of their power, their versatility, comes from just the vast access to powerful spells, right? That said, and I didn't write this in the script, so I'm going off the cuff here, but having finished the build now and come up with some kind of fun and crazy shenanigans, I think I'm ready to retract that statement. There's something about having such a vast spell list that allows for some fun spell combinations that other classes aren't really going to have access to, that can lead to some kind of zany, fun, really powerful kind of combos. Anyways, if we're going for a pure wizard, how should we build them? For the sake of this video series, again, where we're trying to kind of make a character who's like first and foremost good at doing what their class is supposed to be good at doing, right? And then after that, sort of try and build for damage. Well, what's a wizard supposed to be good at? I'm tempted to just say like everything, but that's not really true. I think I'd say good crowd control, maybe first and foremost. Use those powerful spells for the most powerful thing you can do in combat, right? Shut down your enemies. Beyond that, I'd say just kind of like be able to have an answer for almost every problem, right? Need to breathe underwater? No problem. Need to get to hard to reach places? Check. Need to learn something that you don't already know? There's a spell for that too. But yeah, that comes fairly naturally to us via our spell list, right? And beyond that, I think you've got to include blasting. And maybe especially like AoE multi-target blasting. Sure, they can do single target stuff too, and we'll get into that. But if I'm not casting Fireball, am I really a wizard? So yes, that's what we'll be building around today. We want a character who is great at all of the things that a wizard's supposed to be good at outside of damage, which will again come fairly easy to us thanks to our spells. But from there, try to make the best like artillery field piece that we can make. Someone who's a specialist at devastating hordes of enemies, maybe even while shutting some of them down at the same time. Oh, and I mean, maybe we'll try to buff our survivability while we're at it, since no multiclassing, we are squishy, Ready to jump in? I proudly present D&D build number 240, the Classic Blaster. Unlimited cosmic power! The Elementalist. Fireball and lightning, very, very frightening. The Elemancer. The Blastomancer. Dr. Boom. The Incendiary Cloud. Ooh, that is clever. You'll see why in a minute. Inglorious Blastards. I was going to go with the AoE Voker. Another great one, no race like gnome, but then I read Logan's suggestion, The Wizard of the Roast, and it was over. So that's what we're going with today. Thanks to the Discord community for all of the incredible suggestions. As always, you guys never cease to amaze and delight. Huge thanks to my good friend Randall Hampton for the fantastic artwork that he put together for the build this week. He does this every week. He's so good. If you'd be interested in following him to check out the other stuff that he's done, or maybe even, trying to commission him to create some art for your character or even your entire party, I'll put links in the video description as always on how to do so. And we don't have a sponsor today, so let me just take a brief moment and remind you guys, or tell you for the first time if you didn't know, I've got stuff you can buy, merch, that hopefully you would really enjoy and would also be a nice way to support me. Check in the video description, you'll see links to my merch shop, which right now just has a bunch of really cool and hopefully funny t-shirts that I'm pretty proud of and helped design. And actually got some nice input and suggestions from a lot of you on their design too. And just recently I launched a partnership where I've got a really yummy smelling candle and a yummy smelling soap that I also helped create. A welcome home candle and a rangery like soap that has a different colored dice set inside of each bar of soap so that as you use it you can exfoliate a little bit and then afterwards you get a new set of dice. Anyways, they make great gifts, maybe just even for yourself. So check them out. Hopefully you'll find something you like. Level 1. For our starting class, we're going wizard. We're staying wizard forever. Building a wizard, not starting with a level in fighter or artificer. What is the world coming to? My hands are tied. I have no choice. And we must reach the pinnacle of our wizarding power by level 17 when I stop these builds, so let's go. For our species. I think I would actually probably go with Goliath for this build, but it would be for a giant ancestry that I've not used yet. Cloud Giant. Yeah, we don't need the extra fire damage or slowing or toppling power from other ancestries, right? But since we are a super squishy robe-wearing wizard, we very much might want to teleport as a bonus action, proficiency bonus times per day. And while sure, we've got Misty Step eventually, that takes a spell slot, right? Which means we couldn't also cast a spell that turn, unless it was a cantrip, and I want to be blasting. So I think being able to just like bamf to safety a few times per day and still be able to cast a potent spell would be really important, personally. My backup favorite pick from the PHB here might be Dwarf, though I think. Again, we're squishy, and one more hit point per level might not seem like a lot, but it could often be the difference between life and death. And, poison resistance from dwarves is great to have too. But feel free to go a different route if you want. Nothing here is going to show up on the spreadsheets or the numbers for us unless maybe we went ASMR for a little bit of extra AoE damage, but again, we want to stay as far away from the danger as possible, and that little area of effect emanation that ASMR get is a little too close for comfort for me personally. As for our background, as always, I'd say, take an old one and customize it, or just make a custom background as outlined in the player's handbook and the DMGs. But if you can't do that, you have to take, one of the preset player's handbook backgrounds. I would probably go for criminal or merchant, but yeah, I'd be a little bit annoyed because the origin feat that I most want on this build is tough for 2 more hit points per level. But we only get tough from the farmer background, and that doesn't have the right ability score increases. So if I had to pick, a PHB background, criminal gives alert for solid initiative benefits, and merchant gives lucky, which is always nice to have for on-demand advantage. But yeah, tough is my first choice here for sure. For our ability scores, I'm going to assume that we go the point buy method as always and say let's start with a 15 intelligence, take a +2 there, a 15 constitution and a +1, and then a 14 dexterity. As for our starting equipment, we don't need a lot. I think it would be worth it to grab a light crossbow and then just, some clothes, a spell book, There's not much we need, and the light crossbow isn't even strictly necessary. It just hits a little harder if we want to be casting a ranged cantrip thanks to True Strike. As a Wizard 1, then, we get Ritual Adept first off, and this is one of those really potent features that also doesn't show up on the spreadsheets, right? But it's incredibly useful in almost every game. Remember, every other caster in the game, aside from wizards, just has a number of known spells that they know and can use if they've got the spell slots to use them. The wizard uniquely gets a spell book where they have access to a bunch of spells, but then they have to choose which of those spells they have prepared for any given adventuring day. This means they will always know more spells than they can actually have prepared and available for use, right? And they can scribe spells into that spell book if they find a scroll of a spell they don't have yet and things, and it's nice. But then this feature, Ritual Adept, says that if you have a spell in your book with the ritual tag, you can always cast it from the book without needing to prepare it. And that just really expands the number of spells you have access to on any given day. So just make sure you squeeze as many useful ritual spells into that book as you can afford every time you get to learn new spells. We also get Arcane Recovery here, which simply lets us recover spent spell slots once per day after a short rest, equal to half our wizard level rounded up, never higher than a 5th level slot though. As for which spells we should take here at first level, as a wizard there will always be way more that I'd like to have than I will actually be able to get, but I think the most important ones to consider here would be Mage Armor first off, right, so that we can have at least something to protect ourselves. It would put our AC at 13, plus our dexterity, so 15 for now. Not horrible, especially if we had the shield spell available, right, which I would also highly recommend to raise our AC by 5 when we're hit with a reaction for the rest of the round. 20 AC in that case is solid, though we are limited in how often we can get there, of course, especially at these early levels. For that reason, I would seriously consider taking and often using, especially early on, the Blade Ward cantrip. It's really nice now, requiring concentration, but then just lowering all attacks against you by 1d4. That's like adding 2.5 to your AC on average, right? Better than a mundane shield. Beyond that, yeah, we'd want True Strike so that we could attack with a weapon using our intelligence modifier to hit and damage, hence the light crossbow. Maybe Shocking Grasp in case an enemy was in our face and we didn't have an easy way to escape, but we didn't want to take disadvantage on a ranged attack against them, right? Burning Hands would be our best AoE damage spell at this level. Chromatic Orb, our best single target burst option with some multi-target potential, as we explored in the Wild Chromatic Sorcerer build couple of months ago. That was fun. I think I'd be sure to grab Sleep or Tasha's Hideous Laughter, both if you can, but those are, solid control options. And then, yes, the most important wizard spell of them all, Find Familiar. You gotta have your owl or bat or whatever, but flight is important, especially for us, and I prefer the owl. Merlin needs his Archimedes, and Flyby is awesome. More on our familiar later. At level 2, we get Scholar. This is just the worst wizard level in our career, so hang tough. Scholar just gives us expertise in one of our intelligence skills. And that's all. But that's okay, because at level 3, we get our subclass. And we, yes, are going with the most quintessential of all blasters in the game, the Evoker. I don't necessarily feel like the Evoker is, like the most powerful wizard subclass or anything, but I do kind of think it's the most quintessential. And if you really find the blasting bit of being a wizard fun and important, then yeah, it's tough to beat. And we get 2 solid features as an Evoker here. First up, Evocation Savant. And all of these Savant features for wizard subclasses now are so much better than they used to be here in 5.5. This just straight up lets us learn 2 new evocation spells from the wizard spell list that we qualify for free, and says every time we gain access to a new level of wizard spells, like at level 5 when we get 3rd level spells, for example, we get 1 more evocation spell for free. That'll add up to a lot of extra spells by the end of our career. 9 more free spells is awesome. It lets us learn more non-blastery things like control and utility and ritual stuff. And then there's Potent Cantrip, which used to be our level 6 feature, right? It switched places with Sculpt spells and just says that when we cast a damaging cantrip and miss, or the enemy succeeded on their save against that cantrip, then we still do half damage. And I don't know, I just love this feature. We're not even building around it, but guaranteed damage without any resource expenditure is just kind of awesome. And then we get second level spells, of course. Blur and Mirror Image are great for survivability. Blindness, Deafness is a nice defensive and offensive move for your entire party, right? If blinded enemies are going to have disadvantage on their attacks, and you're going to have advantage on your attacks. It's awesome. Hold Person is the ultimate control against a single humanoid. Invisibility, always useful, as is Misty Step for when we're out of Cloud Giant jaunts. Scorching Ray is solid single target damage if we can add some damage to every attack, more on that later. Web is really solid area of effect control for restraint on multiple enemies potentially, but the one that I want to focus on for multi-target blasting is, Dragon's Breath. I don't know that I would use this throughout our career or anything, but I do really love the trick of like casting this on our flying familiar and having them, fly up and then just strafe the battlefield with Dragon's Breath. There's just something about a teeny little owl flying over your enemies and raining fire or lightning or cold down from above that tickles me so. Because in case you didn't know, with Dragon's Breath, you can cast it on another creature, right? And they would then use their action to breathe out the damaging effect in a 15-foot cone. Hopefully, thanks to their nice fly speed of 60 feet, they'll be able to stay relatively safe above the battlefield. But if they end up soaking enemy resources and damage and getting killed, I'm kind of okay with that. Sorry, Archimedes, I'll bring you back, I promise. And it's kind of a net gain for the group. Though sure, losing my second level spell would kind of suck, so, use this with caution and maybe a little less often in a tight battlefield where your DM is prone to target your familiar, etc. Just, concentrate on Web or Hold Person instead. You won't be sorry. Speaking of not being sorry for an investment that you make, allow me to very quickly ask you to support the channel in other ways. First off, actually, let me give a shout out to my channel members and patrons. They are what make this channel possible. I couldn't do what I do without them, without you guys. Thank you so much. If you're not a member, I'd love it if you'd consider joining. There's a button below down there that says join, or you can check the video description and see a link to my Patreon where you can learn about all the perks that I offer to my members and patrons, including access to the library of write-ups that I do for all of my builds, so you can more easily recreate them yourself without having to go back and rewatch or take notes, access to the community Discord server, and access to the live monthly Q&A hangout sessions that we have. If you can't or are not interested in supporting the channel in this way, that's fine. Watching, liking, subscribing, all of those things are also great ways. So thanks for being here and doing them. All right, at level 4, we get our first general feat, and we should totally be grabbing Warcaster here so that we can bump our intelligence to 18, have advantage on our concentration checks, and also cast a spell as an opportunity attack if someone leaves our reach. I used to complain a lot about Warcaster. These days, especially as a half feat, it just kind of feels like a no-brainer. Then why do you always delay taking it until like level 12? Because I am so beholden to the spreadsheets. All right, at level 5, Memorize Spell is the first feature that we get, which is just some nice added versatility. It lets us swap out one of our prepared spells with a different one from our spell book after a short rest. But then we get the almighty 3rd level spells, and as always, but maybe especially at this level, there are just too many awesome ones, and I want them all. Hypnotic Pattern, Fear, and or Slow are the trifecta of great control spell. Counterspell and or Dispel Magic are great for shutting down enemy mages and their magical effects. Blink is fantastic for defense. Fly is always useful. Haste is a great buff, especially to be casting on your hardest hitting martial character, right? Tiny Hut, super useful, as is Phantom Steed. But above all, and for this build, yes, of course, that beautiful Ball of Fire. Or Bolt of Lightning, if you'd prefer shooting stuff in a line. Both Fireball and Lightning Bolt do 8d6 damage, half on a dexterity save, which is just a lot of damage at this level, and will be our bread and butter for a bit. Generally, you're going to be able to hit more targets with Fireball, though, especially as an evoker, because at level 6, we get the wonderful Sculpt spells, and this is what makes us the best blasters in the game. New Careful Spell Metamagic says what? Lore Bard says what? Light Cleric says what? Sea Druid says what? But seriously, if you're going to be fireballing, it's hard to beat Sculpt spells. It just straight up makes it so that your AoE, area of effect, right? Evocation spells specifically just don't bother your allies at all. So Place that fireball exactly where you want to hit as many enemies as possible, and who cares about friendly fire? Not you, because you have intelligent fireballs. Heat-seeking fireballs? So yeah, if an ally, the number of allies equal to 1 plus the spell's level, have to save against your evocation spells, they automatically succeed, and they don't even take half damage if they otherwise would. Sweet. And that's just in time for our first damage report. So here's what combat might potentially look like for us at this level if we really just wanted to go all out for big AoE damage. On round 1, we could cast Dragon's Breath on our little owl familiar and then have them fly up and rain down the elemental damage type of our choice on our foes. Let's pretend we upcast it to the 3rd level, so it's 4d6 against each enemy, half on a save, right? On subsequent rounds, we'll repeat that Dragon's Breath damage, but then on rounds 2 and 3, we'd throw out a fireball with our action for 8d6 per enemy, and on round 4, since we'd be out of 3rd level spells, let's go for a 2nd level Shatter. Did I even recommend taking Shatter? Probably not. It's not like the awesomest spell ever, but it's okay. 3d8 thunder damage or half on a constitution save. We could go Burning Hands instead, I guess, but the AoE area there is so much smaller. And, you know, speaking of, how many enemies do we assume that we're hitting? I'm going to say 3 as usual. That might feel like too many for Dragon's Breath, maybe even Shatter with its just 10-foot radius, but I don't know. Remember, a 15-foot cone from Dragon's Breath, right? If you're casting it from above, it's a 3D shape. It would be a 3x3 area on the grid. And besides, if there are more enemies available to hit, a sculpted fireball will almost surely hit more than 3, right? So it doesn't feel overly presumptuous to me. In fact, it might even be conservative, but let's go with it. As always, I'm just going to assume that the enemies have a 50% chance to make their saving throw, and so, averaged over a 4-round combat encounter, with all of the above assumptions, we would do a total of 73 damage per round, spread out amongst 3 targets. And compared to other multi-target damage dealing builds that I've done to date, that's solid, but really kind of just middle of the pack. Wait, what? I thought wizards were the best blasters. Well, maybe that depends on your definition of best. And sustainable, for that matter, right? Because yeah, we're blowing most of our best resources here in a single fight, though to be fair, a lot of my builds do the same, and we do have one nice way to recover spent spell slots, right, with a short rest. We are almost best in class for multi-target damage compared to other, like, multi-target, just single-class builds that I've done so far, with that Eye of the Hurricane Druid edging us out by just a few points. Druid! Flip table. But hey, we've still got our superior spell list, our free sculpting, our better cantrip damage, which isn't showing up here, and we're not done yet. So let's see how later tiers look, shall we? At level 7, we get 4th level spells. And while, yeah, Banishment, Dimension Door, Greater Invisibility, Divination, and Polymorph are all amazing, plus more, let's focus on 3 here. Vitriolic Sphere might be a decent replacement for Fireball. It does acid damage, which is less commonly resisted and immuned. It's got the same size area, right? A 20-foot radius sphere. Those who failed their dex save against it take 10d4 damage now, and then 5d4 more on their turn. That's better total damage than Fireball's 9d6 as a 4th level spell, right? And the acid has the benefit of not burning down the tavern that you're fighting in too. Sorry about that, Mr. Innkeeper. I still feel bad. That said, if the enemy makes its save against Vitriolic Sphere, it's just half damage on the initial 10d4, which is worse than Fireball. It averages out to be almost identical, assuming a 50% save chance, but Fireball's going to be a little more reliable as long as the enemy isn't resistant or immune, right? I'd say it's worth keeping Vitriolic Sphere in your back pocket if you can spare the preparation slot. Other than that, yeah, there's Conjure Minor Elementals. Are we going to use that on this build? I mean, yeah, part of me really wants to, because I need to see if we can outpace that Sorcerer build I did for that Marshals versus Casters video that started this whole series, right? For single target damage. So far, that build is leading the pack, and I'm not sure if any straight class can match them. And yeah, using Conjure Minor Elementals and upcasting Scorching Ray might get us there, especially in the late game. But at the same time, I'm getting a little tired of that trick, even if I've only done it on a couple of builds so far. And I know that on a wizard, it's not going to be as potent as it was on the lore bard who dipped into sorcerer levels, that pyromaniac. I'm out of cards, but the thumbnail looks like this if you missed it. And so I'm kind of like, meh. If you need solid single target damage, then yes, this combo can be a great option, right? CME plus Scorching Ray, especially in a fight that you know is going to last a long time, so you don't mind losing that first round to set up. And especially, maybe more importantly, if you don't mind staying within 15 feet of your enemy so that Conjure Minor Elementals works, right? The extra damage only applies if you're within 15 feet. But on a robe-wearing single-class wizard, that proposition feels dicey at best. Maybe I'll tell you what the numbers would look like during the damage reports from here on, just to see how it compares to the sorcerer at least. But no, the spell I most want to be concentrating on right now, Evert's Black Tentacles. I don't talk about this spell enough. Probably because it's only available to wizards and aberrant sorcerers and bards, I guess, eventually. Spoiled bards. Anyways, yeah. It's like the perfect spell for people like me who know, in their heart of hearts, that they should be concentrating on a control spell, but they just really want to do some more damage. Because it does both. The damage isn't great, and the control isn't as good as Hypnotic Pattern or Fear, or arguably even Slow, but it's solid. And I like the hybrid option. You cast the spell as an action and it covers a 20-foot square, so like a 4x4 on a grid, right? With tentacles. That area becomes difficult terrain, and those in the area or who later enter the area or end their turn there have to make a strength save or take 3d6 bludgeoning damage and be restrained. Once restrained, they have to succeed on an athletics check, no acrobatics option, to get out. And don't forget, if they're restrained, they can't move, attacks against them have advantage, their attacks have disadvantage, and perhaps best of all for this build, they have disadvantage on their, dexterity saving throws, meaning they're more likely to take full damage from our AoE bombs. Perfect. The complaints that I have about the spell, though, is that the damage, which isn't that great in the first place, doesn't scale if you upcast it, right? That kind of bums me out. And yeah, if the enemy makes their save against it, they're going to take no damage, they're going to suffer no restraint, so it's kind of wasted. As a result, for the sake of the spreadsheet at least, I'm probably not going to use it for number crunching purposes, but I do think it would be worth using in combat once in a while, especially if you felt pretty confident that the enemies that you were fighting didn't have great athletics checks and strength saves, right? If I could just assume that I'd have 3 enemies trapped inside every round so that I could get more damage out of my fireballs and some damage from black tentacles, I'd probably use it. But that feels like a bit of a stretch, assumption-wise, right? Anyways, again, keep it on hand if you can, I think. At level 8, we get another feat, and as much as I'd love to cap my intelligence here, I think instead, I'd probably take another intelligence half feat. Telekinetic is perfect for us, because, see, we're not a sorcerer. We don't have Quicken Spell, or a lot else we can do with our bonus action outside of that, Cloud Giant Jaunt, without multiclassing, honestly. And as someone who's always trying to line up enemies for AoE, telekinetic could very often be the difference between getting just one more enemy into our area of effect, and that's awesome. The feat bumps our intelligence to 19 and then says that as a bonus action, we can force a creature within 30 feet, no size restriction, to make a strength save or be moved 5 feet towards us or away from us. Awesome. And allies can willingly fail their save if we want to get them to safety. Nudge someone over so that you can hit that 3rd enemy with Dragon's Breath, or that 5th enemy with Fireball, or sure, shove someone back into the black tentacles after they've just managed to escape. It's great. At level 9, we get 5th level spells, and yeah, getting here feels almost as good as getting to 3rd level spells. So yeah, Big B's Hand is great for single target control or damage or just shenanigans. Circle of Power is a nice party-wide defensive buff. Cone of Cold potentially does a bit more damage than Fireball and might even get more enemies with its 60-foot cone. That's a massive area, though the Constitution save for that is a bit of a bummer. Animate Objects has its uses, though it's less powerful than it used to be. Hold Monster will paralyze just about anything. Dominate Person takes total control of a humanoid. Yolande's Regal Presence is worth considering. It's like Spirit Guardians, but does significantly less damage in a smaller emanation. It does knock enemies prone and pushes them though, so that's cool. But yeah, not something I think I'm going to rely on. How about Steel Wind Strike? People talk about this spell in the comments all of the time. They absolutely love it. I love it conceptually. In practice, I don't think it's really as good as we want it to be. I mean, 6d10 per enemy hit is awesome, and you can potentially hit a lot of them, up to 5, right? But keep in mind, this is an attack that we make against their AC, and there's no half damage if we miss. Yeah, it keeps allies safe, right? You're not in danger of hitting them too, but with sculpt spells, we're not so worried about that. And honestly, the damage from Cone of Cold is slightly better. 8d8 for Cone of Cold versus 6d10 for Steel Wind Strike. That said, against easy to hit enemies, maybe especially if you have advantage on those attacks you're making somehow, or sure, if you have really good reason to teleport to one of the enemies that you're hitting, right? Because that's what happens at the end of the spell. I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad spell. And actually, we might have a great use for it later, but at this level, especially, I think we stick to our fireballs and maybe start concentrating on, Cloud Kill. Speaking of spells I don't talk about much, it's not a perfect spell, but it's pretty good for what we're building around, persistent AoE damage, right? You cast it as an action, it requires concentration, it covers a 20-foot radius sphere, same as Fireball, with a fog that makes the area heavily obscured. Could be great to hamper enemies, could be bad though to hinder allies, to be fair, with every enemy inside or who enters the area or ends their turn in it, as usual for these kinds of spells, having to make a Constitution save or take 5d8 poison damage, half on a save. Alright, should we use this over Dragon's Breath? Or of course, yes, Wall of Force, one of the best control spells in the game, available to us here, just a massive invisible force field. Or, yeah, Slow, or even Black Tentacles, right? That's up to you. But if we're going all out for damage, the pros here are a bigger area, it blinds enemies inside it, and it does more damage than Dragon's Breath slightly. The cons are poison, sees a lot of immunity, Constitution saves are generally worse than dexterity saves, it's not an evocation spell, so you might hurt your friends, and the area of the spell is harder to move. It moves 10 feet away from you at the start of your turn, and with our ability to teleport, and our 35 feet of speed as a Goliath, and with our telekinesis, I think we could make it work a lot of the time, most of the time. In the end, the 5d8 from Cloud Kill versus what would be 6d6 from Dragon's Breath if we upcast it. Who's upcasting Dragon's Breath with a 5th level spell slot? Just exploring the possible, friends, as always. But yeah, the damage is almost identical, so the impact on the numbers is basically moot. Just know the options, the pros, the cons, and make the right decision for your table and encounter. Speaking of, at level 9, it's time for our next damage report. Since last check, the main thing that we've done to increase our damage is to increase our spell slots, as usual for casters. Let's say, sure, we're casting Cloud Kill on round 1 now and following up on rounds 2 through 4 with a level 4 Fireball. Beyond that, we've picked up some nice potential control and utility, and even a way to get one more enemy into our AoE or get a friend out of danger. And yeah, if you'd rather keep using Dragon's Breath, go for it. Or, of course, if you'd rather concentrate on a powerful control spell, whether Black Tentacles or Fear or Hypnotic Pattern or Slow or, yeah, Wall of Force, then you should do that. And actually, though, thinking about it, Slow would bump the damage of your Fireball too, right? Since it lowers the enemy dexterity save by 2. Might be a nice way to bump your damage while throwing down some solid debuffing. But then, yeah, go for it if that's what you want to do. In the interest of exploring the extent of what's possible, let's pretend we're doing this. If we did, averaged against 3 enemies over a 4-round combat encounter, assuming a 50% chance to save against 3 enemies, our total damage would be 107 damage per round, and compared to other sustained DPR builds that I've done to date, it's still kind of middle of the pack, though it's maybe slipped down a couple of spots, not scaling quite as well as a few other builds now. And compared to other single class builds, we're in the same place too, behind the Eye of the Hurricane Druid, but ahead of the Hammer of the Divine Cleric in total damage. Should we be concerned? I don't really think so. We're a single class wizard. We're fine. We have a bigger bag of tricks and better control than any of them. Oh, and for those curious, if we were to go the Conjure Minor Elementals route and cast it as a 5th level spell on round 1, then fire some 4th level Scorching Rays on rounds 2 through 4, on average we'd do anywhere from 77 to 19 DPR, depending on the enemy armor class. Call it 50-ish DPR on average. Not bad for single target, but not great It's behind that sorcerer build that used Scorching Ray on average, thanks largely to the sorcerer's easy advantage from innate sorcery, as well as extra bonus action damage from Quicken Spell, etc. So anyways, let's keep going because there are some fun and potent things in our future. Starting at level 10, where as an evoker, we get Empowered Evocation. This says that when we cast a wizard evocation spell, we can add our intelligence modifier to 1 damage roll of that spell. Dang it, I better get my intelligence to 20. And yeah, that's not amazing for single target spells, though when combined with potent cantrip, it makes for a really hard-hitting firebolt, right? But remember, the rules state that if we're rolling damage against multiple enemies from one spell, like a fireball, right, we roll the damage once. So adding 4, soon 5, to everyone who gets hit by our AoE is a decent little bump. At level 11, we get 6th level spells, and well, you should probably be taking Mass Suggestion for a concentration-free, super potent, everyone go home now control spell. I really like Contingency for both an in case of emergency option, like if I get submerged in water, cast water breathing on myself, right? But maybe better yet, for our purposes, the ability to do something like, when I say the magic word, cast Conjure Minor Elementals on myself, or something. This could help us avoid having to spend the first round of combat getting ready for combat, right? If you have a tendency to only do 1 combat encounter per day at your table, and if you're wanting to do solid single target damage, I like this a lot more than otherwise. But it is very expensive. Giving up your single 6th level spell slot here to save yourself 1 round of setup in combat feels kind of bad, unless maybe you're regularly having a day of rest in between adventuring days, right? So you could cast this on your rest day or something. But it could be a cool trick when you needed it. The other obvious choice for AoE blasters here is, of course, Chain Lightning, which can hit up to 4 targets as long as each one is within 30 feet of the original target, bouncing lightning to all of them for 10d8. I mean, Cone of Cold would do 9d8 upcast here, though, so it's not like this is just absolutely amazing. It's worth considering, but maybe less so as a sculpting evoker, right? At level 12, we get another feat, and I want something to bump my intelligence by 1, but which feat is the best choice? Elemental Adept is worth considering, but the problem is it lets us choose just a single elemental damage type that we get to ignore resistance for, and sure, treats damage rolls of that type that are 1s as 2s instead, a teeny average increase. If we were more focused on a specific flavor of damage, then it would feel better, but we're kind of an elementalist who likes to dabble in lots of flavors, right? And if something is resistant to one of our flavors, well, that's okay, we've got lots of other ones to choose from, yeah? But you might just say, hey, Fireball ain't broke, I'm not going to try and fix it to eke out 1 or 2 more points of damage and just go flame on, and if so, I don't think you'd be wrong really for taking, Elemental Adept with fire here. Or maybe you want to commit to Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning, or Cone of Cold even, whatever. Beyond Elemental Adept though, I think our best Player's Handbook options are Telepathic for some nice utility to talk silently amongst friends, or maybe even Skill Expert to get some more proficiency and expertise. Go ahead and pick what you think is best for you, just cap that intelligence at 20. At level 13, we get 7th level spells, and while there are lots of great options, for my money, we really just gotta decide between 2. Reverse Gravity for some fantastic turn the world upside down control and potentially even damage power, or Simulacrum. Anytime I get to this spell, I just roll my eyes, and people often ask why I don't use it in builds. I mean, it takes 12 hours to cast and requires a bunch of ice or snow, plus a ton of gold. But then you basically get an exact copy of yourself with half of your hit points who can't benefit from resting. So yeah, that means you get all of those amazing spells and class and subclass features, right? But you're also super squishy, and once your Simulacrum spends those spell slots, they're gone. And so, yeah, I don't use it because it feels to me like it's just so unreliable. Awesome if you've got the time and the gold and the snow, and it's the day after you made them, so they're fully loaded, and you've managed to keep them alive miraculously, but that's a lot of caveats, I guess I just want my builds to be a little more dependable, reliable. I want to say with a fairly high degree of certainty that you're just going to be able to do this thing, at least for 1 combat encounter per day. and I just don't really feel like I can do that with Simulacrum. So, sure, if you can have regular access to the time and the gold and the snow to do this even semi-regularly, and the spell isn't banned at your table, for that matter, as it often is, then go for it and enjoy the huge boost to your power. For the rest of us, yeah, I'd grab Reverse Gravity. Or sure, maybe Force Cage, but it's not as good now that it requires concentration and an expensive reagent that gets used up. Before we get to the damage report, let me go over a cool little trick that now that we're high enough level, we could pull off for some nice burst damage and shenanigans. Hold on, let me see if I can summon Will from D&D shorts here. Weird things you can do in D&D 240. I can't do a British accent. Steel Wind Elementals. Step 1, be a high-level wizard like we're building today. Step 2, when you've got some downtime, cast Contingency so that when you say the magic word Critlander, you instantly cast Conjure Minor Elementals on yourself at the 5th level. Step 3, say the magic word, run into the middle of a group of enemies, and cast Steel Wind Strike. Since Steel Wind Strike makes a melee attack against up to 5 enemies in range, the bonus damage from Conjure Minor Elementals should stack with the damage you do to each target, meaning you'd hit each of them for 6d10 plus 3d8 for an average against 5 enemies of 233 damage right on round 1. Repeat each round as long as you've got spell slots to burn and enemies to kill. Enjoy!
Was that supposed to be me? I don't sound anything like that. Well, guess what, Colby? You've just been unfriended.
Now, yeah, the only question here is this. Does Steel Wind Strike have you actually teleporting to each enemy that you attack, thereby keeping you within the required 15 feet for it to trigger the bonus damage? Or does the bonus damage only trigger against those who were within 15 feet of you when you cast Steel Wind Strike, right? Steel Wind Strike does say that you're making a melee attack, so it certainly seems to imply that you're teleporting around the battlefield, but it doesn't exactly specify that, right? Only saying that you vanish and then make melee attacks. I feel pretty confident that rules as intended, it works, and I bet most DMs would allow it, but rules as written, it's a little more questionable, so just be sure to discuss with your DM. The nice thing about going this route, of course, is that it gives you some great single target AoE versatility and power, right? Start off combat with a big kaboom, then switch to single target focus, firing off lots of Conjure Minor Elementals loaded Scorching Rays. Soften them up with the artillery, then move in with the machine guns kind of thing. Jeez, that's so violent. Anyways, am I going to use this tactic in the upcoming damage report? Actually, I don't think so. It's cool and it's fun and it's potentially useful, but I think since I'm not assuming that we have advantage on our attacks against all these enemies, right? And maybe especially because neither of these spells are evocation spells, which means they couldn't take advantage of the recent damage bump that we got to evocation spells. And also because, yeah, Steel Wind Strike doesn't scale when you upcast it, nor can you use Contingency to cast Conjure Minor Elementals at, say, the 7th level, where damage would really start to get crazy. I mean, this might be a once in a while kind of fun, useful thing, especially if it lets you hit 5 targets when, say, Fireball or Cone of Cold or Chain Lightning would only let you get 3, right? But since I'm just assuming 3 targets during this damage report here at level 13, I'm going to assume that we're still casting Cloud Kill or Dragon's Breath, yes, at the 7th level, crazy, I know, on round 1, and then on round 2, unleashing a Chain Lightning with our 6th level slot, and on rounds 3 and 4, going for Cone of Cold with our 5th level slots, and assuming a 50% chance of succeeding, but with a little extra 5 damage per from our evocation spells that we picked up since last check, and with our Capped Intelligence modifier now. So, okay. Averaged over 4 rounds, assuming a 50% save chance, right? We would now do 148 damage per round total. And that's a solid 40% increase since last check, but other multi-target blasters that I've built to date seem to continue outpacing us here, putting us kind of more near the bottom of the pack now at this level compared to other AoE builds, right? That spell from Fizzban's Draconic Transformation, that would have been perfect for us. Way better for a concentration than Cloud Kill or Dragon's Breath, letting us basically become a dragon and breathe fire as a bonus action every round, and still throw out AoE spells. Alas, it's not in the player's handbook. But hey, This is still a lot of damage potential, and we've still got all of our awesome versatility and control, right? But let's see if we can gain back some ground in the late game, shall we? Oh, and for those curious about single target potential, if we went Conjure Minor Elementals at the 7th level on round 1 and then fired off Upcast Scorching Rays the rest of the rounds, we'd be anywhere from 140 damage per round to 49 DPR, depending on enemy AC, about 100 on average. And this means that finally we'd be doing some really solid single target DPR, beating out that Sorcerer build even, yeah, and every other single class, single target damage build that I've done to date. It's expensive, and we wouldn't be doing any damage on round 1, which really sucks, but the potential is there, yeah. Newsflash. Once you can get CME scaling, it's really potent. And yeah, sure, alternatively, you could use Contingency for Conjure Minor Elementals at the 5th level, and then start firing on round 1, but the overall damage is a bit less. I call it 90, 95 on average, but it is more tactically sound, I think, almost assuredly, and still really good. So if you wanted to swap to single target damage here, go for it. Feels a little late in the game for that to me, personally. And we would have been pretty bad at it in tiers 1 and 2 of play. And above all, yeah, like I've said, we're a freaking squishy wizard. And having to be within 15 feet of an enemy to get Conjure Minor Elementals to trigger feels really scary without a multi-class tip, so I'm just going to keep number crunching for AoE. But as always, know your options. Cool? Okay, coming down the home stretch here at level 14, we get Overchannel as an evoker, and this is the ability I've been salivating over since level 1. It says that when we cast a wizard spell with a 1st through 5th level slot that deals damage, we can deal maximum damage with it on the turn we cast it. So no using this to benefit like persistent damage spells every round or anything, shucks. The first time we do this per day, no worries. After that, we take damage. It's 2d12 for every level of the spell that we use it on. Yikes. And it scales up by another d12 per spell slot every time that we use Overchannel after the second time. So like 3d12 if we use it a third time, 4d12 per spell level if we use it a fourth, etc. Owie. So yeah, this isn't exactly sustainable, but it's freaking cool. And a nice little burst damage option. A max damage 5th level Cone of Cold would do 64 damage, plus 5 more for us for Empowered Evocation, right? So 69, nice. 69 flat damage and a 60-foot cone is muy poderoso. But if we tried it a second time, we'd take 65 damage on average. Ouch. And then like 98 if we tried it a third time. And goodbye concentration, by the way, if not our life force. Anyways, we'll plan on using it at least once when we crunch numbers to give ourselves a little boost. At level 15, we get 8th level spells, and there are lots of fun and cool ones, almost all of them. I love Clone for some crazy prestige-like shenanigans. You've seen that movie, right? So good. Befuddlement can blast for 10d12 damage, half on a failed intelligence save, nice, and keep enemies from casting spells or taking any kind of magic action at all for 30 days. Sweet against casters especially. Dominate Monster just lets you take total control of almost anything. And Maze is a hard shutdown for any creature, no save. At least for 1 round, potentially more. It's so great. Anyways, have fun here. At level 16, we get another feat, and I think we've got to grab Resilient Constitution to give ourselves proficiency in Constitution saves. Probably should have grabbed this earlier since our concentration is so important, and concentration spells are our best spells, but at the very least, be sure to grab it by now. And then finally for us, at level 17, we get the almighty god-like 9th level spells. And I mean, you get Wish, the end, right? But Wish is banned at a lot of tables, and even if it's not, it's pretty debilitating. You can't really cast it every day, so let's look at other options. First and foremost, you've got the quintessential Supreme Blast spell, Meteor Swarm. 40d6 damage in a 40-foot radius area is just, it's devastation supreme. You're probably going to hit every enemy on the battlefield and keep all of your allies safe, since it's an evocation spell, right? It's hard to imagine not taking this, I think, for this particular character concept, right? But I mean, imprisonment can be great control. Shape change just lets you turn into an adult red or gold dragon if you've seen one, or something else awesome if you haven't. And then there's Prismatic Wall. It blinds enemies and is insane damage if you can get someone to pass through it. 60 d6 damage, and it can restrain them if it doesn't just teleport them to another plane of existence. I mean, it's really, really good. It doesn't even require concentration. And we've got ways to move enemies. Okay, you know what? Screw it. Let's do this. Weird things you can do in D&D 241. The Prismatic Elevator. Step 1. Be a level 17 wizard. Step 2. Cast Wall of Force around as many enemies as you can, so they can't escape, in an area no larger than a 30-foot diameter circle or a 30-foot square. Begin Evil Monologue. Step 3. On your next turn, cast Prismatic Wall, remember this doesn't require concentration, in the shape of a 30-foot sphere over the heads of your trapped foes, and begin cackling maniacally. Step 4. On your next turn, cast Reverse Gravity on top of your imprisoned enemies, ending Wall of Force and causing them to fall to the ceiling, passing through all 7 layers of the Prismatic Wall. This would cause them to take 60 d6 of damage each, half on a save, and potentially be restrained or shunted into another plane of existence. Once they hit the ceiling, you drop concentration on Reverse Gravity, which you can do at any time, no action required, causing your enemies to fall back through the Prismatic Wall sphere for another 60 d6 of damage potentially, as well as another chance to be restrained and or take a one-way ticket to hell. Oh, and another 10 d6 of damage upon landing from the 100 feet they've just fallen for a total, per target, of 130 d6. If you can trap just 3 enemies inside that Wall of Force, they'll take a total average of 1,365 damage, half on a save. I hope you brought more dice. Enjoy. Thanks for the inspiration, Will. So, the question is, do I actually try and do this for our next damage report that starts right now? What the hell? Why not? I think it could work fairly well. I know enemies get a chance to grab onto something when you cast Reverse Gravity, but if they're inside an invisible force field, when it goes off, right, those are some slick walls. Seems a lot less likely. And sure, if enemies can teleport or fly or somehow have the knowledge and the means to destroy every layer of the Prismatic Wall before your turn, well, hey, kudos to them. I love this tactic so much, as sinister and wacky as it is, that I say we go for it. We're a level 17 wizard. We don't get here very often. And yeah, especially since wizards, or again, bards, big cheater faces, are the only ones who could actually combine all of these spells together and pull it off. Plus, it lets us have our control cake and eat it too with insane multi-target damage. Oh, and best of all, since Meteor Swarm is an evocation spell, we can just grab it for free when we hit level 17 anyways, and then use it when the Prismatic Elevator tactic isn't going to work for whatever reason. So, to review, round 1, cast Wall of Force. Round 2, Prismatic Wall in a 30-foot sphere shape above the trapped enemies. Round 3, cast Reverse Gravity, dropping concentration on it when they get to the top of the elevator so they fall back through again, and sure, just for fun, round 4, cast an overchanneled Cone of Cold at the 5th level, which would do 69 damage to each enemy thanks to Empowered Evocation. And so, assuming 3 targets and a 50% chance to save averaged over 4 rounds, we would do 307 damage per round total. See, I told you wizards were the best blasters. Well, yeah, it's not often that you see damage double between levels 13 and 17, is it? Compared to other AoE builds that I've done to date, this now is beating all of them, but just barely. It's like 7 points ahead of the Master Blaster Sorcerer at this level, 7. And only 20 points ahead of that Hammer of the Divine who was totally cheating with that instant cast Hallow spell. And yeah, I know, you're not going to pull this tactic off perfectly all the time. So, in case you were wondering, if you could just cast Cloud Kill or Dragon's Breath on round 1, upcast to the 8th level, a Meteor Swarm on round 2, then an Overcharged Cone of Cold on rounds 3, and why not round 4 as well. It's the last round. We're about to die. We're going out with a bang. Then we do about 203 total damage on average. Still really solid and a lot easier to pull off. And yeah, if we're going for single target and went Conjure Minor Elementals as a 9th level spell on round 1, followed by 3 rounds of our hardest hitting Scorching Rays, it would be 231 to 92 damage per round, depending on enemy AC. Call it 175 on average, which is fabulous single target damage. And since they're Scorching Rays, could be directed at multiple targets if you wanted. If you don't mind delaying damage for a round and putting yourself in harm's way, sure, knock yourself out. But okay, there is a lot to talk about from an analysis perspective on this baby, so let's just jump into some final thoughts, shall we? The tier score for this build, if you take the damage that they're doing at each of the 4 damage reports and just average it into one big number, we end up with a 158.79, which hilariously puts them 0.2 of a point above the previous total damage for a single class build's leader, the Hammer of the Divine. So there you go, I've proven it. Wizards are the best class, the best blasters. The end, so long. Just kidding. And I mean, yeah, the build is still significantly below that Master Blaster build for like tier score anyways. But I mean, yeah, okay, this got a little silly, didn't it? I feel like this one got a little bit away from me at the end. No regrets, I had fun. But yes, a lot of our like number power, right, came at level 17, later than most of us even play the game. And even then, the Prismatic Elevator, fun as it is, has plenty of caveat. Doesn't work as well against flying or levitating or high jumping enemies, though remember you can put Wall of Force in a dome. It's just a smaller area when you do that. It doesn't work great against teleporting enemies though. Doesn't work if one of the baddies has a disintegration spell. Or sure, if they can destroy the prismatic wall. Or if there is something they can grab onto inside of that Wall of Force area and they make their dexterity save, etc., etc., etc. So maybe those late game numbers are a little inflated. And for that matter, you know, keeping your familiar alive and or getting Cloud Kill to move where you want it to every round, those things aren't always going to work all the time either, right? But who in their right mind would be using a high level spell to concentrate on Dragon's Breath in the first place, you know? And that kind of brings me to what I think is probably like the biggest takeaway for the build today. Maybe wizards, after all, don't make the best blasters. Even evocation wizards. If by best we mean reliably doing the most damage to multiple enemies. The biggest difference between wizards and those who I think make better area of effect damage dealers, it's the reliability of the concentration spell. Druids and clerics, and of course bards because cheaters, just have better, more reliable, persistent AoE damage dealing spells. Spirit Guardians and the new Conjure Woodland Beings are tough to beat for round after round, easy to use, almost guaranteed to hit who you want, multi-target damage. And if you can stack one of those with a fireball or a lightning bolt or a guaranteed vulnerability to radiant damage for enemies effect, well, it's going to be hard for anyone to keep up. Or multi-target sustainable damage, right? But guess what? I think that's totally fine. Because, like I said, when you've got Web and Black Tentacles and Wall of Force and Hypnotic Pattern and Fear and Slow and Reverse Gravity at your disposal, who in their right mind would concentrate on a little more damage? Maybe the best blaster isn't necessarily the one who does the most damage to multiple enemies every round. Maybe the best blaster is the one who can shut down half of the enemies on the battlefield or more, and then hit the greatest number of enemies left possible with as hard an AoE punch as they can, again, while shutting all the other baddies down. And under that definition, then yeah, I do think evokers are the best blasters. The best control and utility spells coupled with free sculpting to keep allies safe, making it easy to hit more enemies with their bombs, and even adding a little bit more to those bombs with some subclass features as they go, right? So I think in the end, if I had to choose between a teammate who was playing a druid or a cleric focused on multi-target damage, or this build, I'd probably take this one. I feel like they would do more to help our party win the fight, even if the total damage that they deal per round, per enemy, isn't quite as good. To say nothing of all of the additional utility they would bring between combat encounters, right? So anyways, that's the build for the week. I hope you enjoyed it. Man, I had fun with this one. Especially with those shenanigans that I'm going to turn into shorts. And I think Will get a kick out of them too. Anyways, Merry Christmas. If you're watching this, it releases just a couple of days before Christmas, I think. Even if that's not a holiday that you typically celebrate, I hope you'll have a Merry Christmas anyways. And happy holidays otherwise. I love you guys. Thank you so much for all that you do for me and for this channel. It means the world to me. It really does. I hope you have a great day and a fantastic week. And if you don't, I really hope you'll hang in there. I know you can. Don't give up. I hope you'll do good and be kind. And that I see you again really soon. But until then, take care. Bye. You shake my nerves and you rattle my brain. Too much love drives a man insane. You broke my will, oh what a thrill. Goodness gracious, great balls of fire. Kiss me baby, ooh, feels good. Hold me baby, I want to love you like a lover should. You're fine, so kind. I want to tell this world that you're mine, 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 mine. Know you're a child of the 80s if that song reminds you of Top Gun, not Evocation Wizards. Rest in peace, Goose. And can use and can, use any given. And I'm going to redo my numbers for the level 9 damage report. With